So, Hare Krishna everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for coming. Today's topic is key to happiness, unlock it. So before we start, we can start with prayers. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kalamayam Dadati Swapradantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Hare Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhyo Vedacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining, and I am very grateful for the devotees who actually have given me an opportunity to speak, and to all of you to actually be here, so that you can hear the nectarian glorification of the Lord. And I request your blessings so that I can speak something which is valuable to all of us, which is applicable to all of us, and also relevant. So today's topic is key to happiness, unlock it. Very interesting topic, right? Being happy, this idea of happiness. So, when we look at the Vedanta Sutras, which are some literatures, there's a nice aphorism that's given. Anandamayo Bhyasat. This idea that as living entities, as beings, we are always seeking for some sort of pleasure, some sort of happiness. That's our natural goal. No matter what our age, no matter what our gender, no matter what color skin we have, no matter where we're from, no matter what occupation we have, we're only searching for happiness. And we can see that this hunt for happiness actually is something that drives everything we do in life. No matter what it is. If you think of a small baby, just a newborn baby, where does he or she find happiness? In the mother's arms, the milk, or the care and protection of the mother. As the baby grows a bit older, and now it's a small child, that level of happiness is no longer enough. Now what do they want? Toys, friends, people to play with. What about when they grow up to teenagers? Now they want to go out, they want to experience the world. Freedom. I need my own room. All these things. And sometimes also enjoying the opposite gender. But then, when teenagers grow into young adults, even that is not enough now, right? Now what do they want? Well, jobs, career, money, bank balance. 64-inch TV, a Mercedes-Benz, a 4-bed house. Sorry? Helicopter. I mean, why not? If it gives us happiness, no? But then, as a young adult grows into an old age person, let's call them a respectable citizen. Now even that's not enough, right? Now what do they want? They want peace, they want security, they want pension, right? They're waiting for their pension. Bus pass. And happiness. Everything, everybody, no matter what stage we're at, we're always searching for happiness. But we see that no matter where we are, we don't get it, right? Or if we get it, we quickly lose it. On the one side, if we don't get it, we get frustrated, we get distressed, we get anxious. I tried to achieve something, but I didn't get it. On the other side, when we get it, we quickly realize that actually, this isn't what I wanted. We thought happiness was situated in something, but when we get that something, we realize that it's not actually there. Happiness has now moved on. Now it's the next thing that we want. If we look at an unmarried man, he thinks if he gets married, he'll be happy. But if you ask a married man, he'll wish he was bachelor again. If you speak to a teenager, he's thinking, I want to grow up. But if you ask a grown-up, they get nostalgic and wish their youth again. If you look at a poor man, when he sees a man coming out of his Bentley, he thinks, if I'm rich, I'll be happy. But when that same Bentley man walks down the road and sees somebody homeless, smiling with a smile bigger than he's smiled in the past 10, 20 years. Somebody early on in their career, they think, okay, I'll put all my time, all my energy into climbing the ladder. But somebody who's at the top of the ladder is wishing, if only I had time and energy for myself and my family. Everything we do is driven by this desire for happiness. But no matter what we do, somehow or another, we never get it. Even us sitting here, actually. We're all here because we're hoping that the speaker is going to say something that will give me happiness. Those who are coming for darshan and then leaving, they're thinking, okay, maybe darshan will give me happiness. What would the speaker give happiness? Let me have darshan, let me go. Now, many of you will recognize that what I'm talking about is something very similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Has anybody heard of that before? Yeah? So what is this? It's basically a model that has been created. It's a modern model that people have created to basically indicate the different rankings of happiness, or as they call it, needs. At the very basic level, you have the physiological needs, this idea of food, water, shelter. As your consciousness grows even further, as you evolve, as your consciousness evolves, then you seek happiness in safety. And as you go further, this idea of a community, right, relationships with people. And as you go even further, then it's this self-esteem, this idea of self-worth. And then, according to that model, the topmost thing, self-actualization. This idea that if I just achieve my full maximum potential in the world, I'll be happy. And it's quite a plausible model, right? I mean, if you think about it, children, animals, their consciousness, their sort of driver for happiness is based on food, it's based on safety, it's based on relationships. But then as we become adults, we realize that, okay, this idea of self-worth, this idea of unlocking our potential becomes a big thing. But actually, this model is still incomplete. Because so many people we see at the top of their game, they don't get the happiness that they were after. There's still something lacking. Those at the top, they end up doing, all sorts of bad habits. Some even commit suicide. So clearly that isn't the way forward. This model in its complete form is actually available to us in the literatures, in the Shastric literatures that we have that have been around for thousands and thousands of years. In something called the Panchakoshas. Has anybody heard of this? Panchakoshas? Okay. So it's also given in the Bhagavad Gita briefly. Prabhupada gives it in one of the purple books actually. Chapter 13, I think. 9 or 13. And so the Panchakoshas are basically these 5 sheaths. There's 2 analogies I had for this. One kind of works okay, one probably works better. One was layers of clothes. Like it's cold, it's winter right now, we've all got multiple layers of clothes, right? You've got, the Panchakosha basically means 5 sheets, 5 layers. So you've got 4 layers of clothes and then the body. Or the better example, just because you don't have 2 separate things, is Russian dolls. Has anybody seen Russian dolls before? You have this idea? So it's basically casing inside casing. So dolls inside dolls inside dolls. And then the innermost doll is the smallest, it's the actual inner doll. So imagine it as 5 Russian dolls, right? One inside the other. That's what these sheets are. What are they called? There's Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manamaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. Don't worry, I'm not expecting you to remember these. Although, rather than Nish will probably tell me that there's a test at the end of the class, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't get prasadam if you don't pass it.
So you have that, no prasadam if you don't pass the test, so people get their notebooks out. But yeah, so what are these? So, Annamaya is the outermost layer, right? The topmost. That again is very similar to Maslow's hierarchical needs, your hierarchical needs. It's this idea of Anna, right? That consciousness, the level of consciousness is in food. And you see this very much. Babies, what's the first thing they do with anything that they get? Put it in their mouth. But then the next layer, Pranamaya, is this idea of survival, right? Or like whatever retains life. So you see again, in those of less consciousness, again if we go to babies, when you carry if it's your baby, then they're perfectly fine, they're perfectly happy, they're perfectly smiling. But then as soon as you give them to somebody unknown, they start crying because it's like unknown territory. They want to protect themselves. And the way they know is by crying so that they get attention and then go back to their mother or father. So this is very much bodily conscious related, right? This idea of protecting like food or protecting the body. Still bodily conscious. And we see that most animals, practically all animals and young children fall under these. But then you've got a third sheath, which goes beyond the bodily consciousness. And actually, when we look at the 3rd, 4th, and 5th sheaths, or layers, then we see that actually the human form of life is rare and special because practically you see that only humans can get to these levels of consciousness. And the 3rd sheath is this idea of being conscious of us being conscious. The ability to think about what we're thinking. Most sentient beings will think, feel, and will, right? So that's not special. The ability to think, the ability to feel things, even trees, even plants do these things. But what makes a 3rd sheath, what makes humans special, is that we have the ability to think about what we're thinking, to apply intelligence to it, to contemplate, to introspect. So that's the 3rd sheath. But actually we see that is still quite material, right? Because you don't necessarily have to be thinking about transcendental things. You can still think about material things. And generally we see that most human beings will fall under Pranamaya and Manamaya, this idea of survival, right? They run each and every day just to make ends meet. Whether it's for family, whether it's for work, whether it's for the body, they're just trying to make ends meet. That's Pranamaya. But the Manamaya is this idea that, okay, I'm making ends meet, but I want to do more. I'm able to think more. So they challenge people. They challenge each other. They challenge the way society functions. They want to think different. They want to break the status quo. And they think that, okay, I'm aiming for the same material success as everybody else, but because I'm doing it differently, I'll get happiness. They didn't get happiness because they did it normally, but I'm going to get happiness because I'm doing it differently. But we see that they still don't get happiness. And even if they do, Krishna describes that this world is dukhalem shashvatam. Dukhalem means that it's a place of misery. Shashvatam means it's a temporary place. So even if they get what they were after, it's temporary. It doesn't last very long because it just goes. Oftentimes we think that oftentimes we put so much effort into things, we endeavor so much for some things, and then we're like, okay, we get it, and it's like, it was all worth it. Those hours we spent, those days we spent, those weeks we spent in achieving one thing, we get it, and it was all worth those 5 minutes of pleasure. And that's what we define as happiness. But Krishna describes that happiness is actually misery itself. Because you worked so hard, you endeavored so much, for what, 5 minutes? Not even a fraction of how much energy you put into it. And so if we're smart, we then start thinking, okay, I'm endeavoring so much in life, but getting so little in return. So what should I be endeavoring for that can get me permanent, eternal happiness? And that's where one comes to the fourth level of consciousness, Vijnana Maya. This is where one is starting to think, okay, the material world, it's nice. It's a nice place. We have nice people. All of you are such nice people. But it's not the source of eternal happiness. So then we start going on a spiritual quest. Start trying to find the answers to all life's questions. And we recognize eventually that, okay, we need to find somebody who can help us along the path. So we might come to a guru, a teacher. And eventually, when we come to the right path, then what happens is we start going deeper in our spiritual practice, whatever path that is. And if that path then helps us get to the next stage, then that path helps us attain that eternal happiness. And that next stage is the fifth sheath, the innermost Russian dot, the real identity of us, Anandamaya. This is consciousness, this is the level of consciousness where we understand there's me, there's God, and there's a relationship between us. All three things are present. It's not just me and God. It's not just God. It's not just one thing. It's me, God, and the relationship. And that's the real identity of the soul. So if we want to get to the happiness, if we want to get to the conclusion of all these paths that we go on, then that's the stage that we need to come to. At that stage, all of our real needs, right, the needs that we're all searching for, all of our innermost desires get fulfilled. And that unlocks the happiness that we're really after. Because we realize, as Krishna says also in Bhagavad Gita, Mame Vamsha Jiva Bhute Jiva Bhuta Sanat Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. Decided that we're all parts and parcels of Krishna, that we're eternal fragmental parts of Krishna. How does the finger get energy? By feeding the source of where the energy comes from, which is the stomach. How does a tree, how does a plant get energy? When the roots are watered. So in the same way, how does the parts and parcels get energy? When we engage ourselves in Krishna's service. And actually we all belong to Krishna. Just as a business is incomplete without a businessman. Just as energy is incomplete without an energetic. Just as an art piece isn't complete without an artist. In the same way, we as living entities are incomplete without our relationship with Krishna. And theoretically, I think we all understand this, right? Which is why we come to the temple, which is why we have darshan, which is why you're sitting here listening to me blabber on. So theoretically, we all understand this. But if we want to unlock the real source of happiness, we have to practically realize it. We might think, okay, coming to the temple on a Sunday, having nice darshan of the deities, listening to nice kirtan by Radhananda Ishwar Prabhu, attending artis, listening to a class, having nice prasadam, all this, this is the level that will give us the happiness. I mean, it's nice, right? It gives us nice peace, it gives us happiness. But is that enough? Is that enough to penetrate through all those 4 layers, all those 4 sheets, for us to come to this Anandamaya state? Is that enough for us to really unlock the innermost happiness that we're after? Some of us here might be thinking, no. And that's why we're wearing tilaks, that's why we come regularly, we come more than once a day. Some of us might be thinking, yeah, that's enough. But is it really? When you leave the temple room, when you go home, when you start work the next day, how much of that peace, how much of that happiness still exists? So we might think, okay, don't do it once a week, do it every day. Become a devotee. Okay? Read, chant, hear kirtan, hear classes, do some service. We might think that will give us happiness. But it's definitely nice, it's definitely important, because discipline is important in anything we do. But we see that, and I personally see that there are devotees, there are practitioners of spiritual life for years, for decades. And whilst they're doing the service, they're blissful, they're smiling. But then behind closed doors, they're just as miserable as everybody else. So, what is that source of happiness? Devotees are always saying, chant, etc. But they're also unhappy. So what is the real source of happiness? If we want to relish the depths of the ocean of bliss in transcendental life, then merely swimming in the ocean isn't enough. It's not enough to just be a devotee. It's not enough to just be a spiritual practitioner. We have to go deep. We have to take a dive. We have to go deep into the ocean. So if we want to open the treasure box of happiness, then we need the key to go deep. And that key is hidden in the realization that no matter what we do in life, we have to connect it back to Krishna. We have to find Krishna, search for Krishna in everything that we do. If you want a transformation from spiritual life, if you want a transformation that helps us come to the Anandamaya state, then merely just carrying the treasure box around with you in your arms isn't enough. You have to open the treasure box and decorate yourself with the ornaments of these jewels. So merely putting a kantimala on, like I have kantimala on, putting the tilak, wearing the dhoti. Some people have bead bags, just carrying a bead bag around your neck. It's not enough. Because if we want the Anandamaya state, if we want the true happiness in life, we have to go deep. All of this helps. Doing all these things helps because it helps cultivate our externals. But we have to take it inside. So that's the real deal. Wearing all of this helps people see that I'm a devotee. But what makes me a devotee is how much all of this decoration I'm doing is going inside the heart. That's the real deal. And that is how much love, how much surrender, how much absorption do we have in Krishna. And to help us with that, Rupa Goswami actually gives us 3 very practical things which are quite internal for us to cultivate. And I think most of us will know this. It comes from Nectar of Instruction. Utsaha, Nisjad, and Dhairya. What are these? So utsaha is being enthusiastic. You see in the world, whenever anybody wants to achieve something, they have to be enthusiastic to achieve it. They have to be enthusiastic to go out of their way to make it happen. And that's the same in spiritual life. If you really want to attain the happiness, if you really want to unlock the happiness that is within the spiritual practice, you have to be enthusiastic about doing the services. It's not just enough that, yes, Prabhu, yes, Mataji, yes, dear devotee, I'm doing this service. You have to be enthusiastic about doing it. You have to be enthusiastic about whatever the service is, whether it's a temple cleaning service, whether it's chanting, whether it's reading. We need to be enthusiastic. Next one, Nisjad. Endeavoring with confidence, we translate it as. I mean, I think all of us have confidence in something. What does endeavoring with confidence in spiritual life mean? It means that we know that whatever is happening
is the wish of God. Is the will of God.
Is the will of God. Yeah. It's this idea that I'm putting my effort in, I'm endeavoring, I'm being enthusiastic in my endeavor. I might not be qualified, I might not be good enough for it. But you know what? Krishna's right there with us. He's right there with us inside the heart. We know him as a super soul also. He's there to help us along the way. He's there to look after us. If something goes wrong, he's got our back. And if things go right, he's looking after us to make sure they go the best possible way. This idea of humility is also important within this. You see, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who's the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says that if anybody hears or reads his name or associates with his name, they'll become fallen. They'll lose their spiritual life. But how merciful, how glorious is Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that even somebody like me can talk about the glories of Krishna and the glories of the devotees. So then we have Utsaha, Nisjad, and Dhairya, being patient. Put it simply, Rome was built in 3 hours and 2 minutes, right? Rome wasn't built overnight. So how can we expect, when we've been searching for happiness in all these different places for millions of lifetimes, searching for happiness in this place, that place, the third place, how can we expect that within a moment, within one day, within 1 minute, within 1 year, we'll attain Anandamaya state, we'll attain the perfect happiness? So we also have to have patience. So we have to be enthusiastic in our spiritual life. We have to endeavor for our spiritual life with confidence that Krishna's got our back. Krishna's right there. He preserves what we have and provides what we lack. And then this idea that we just have to wait for Krishna to act. And to the degree that we have all of these three things, to that degree, the internalization of the love, of the surrender, of the absorption will come. And then eventually what happens? Right? Eventually, when we start saying, yes, I'm going to dive deep into the ocean of transcendental bliss, then when we reach the bottom of the floor, what happens? In the Srimad Bhagavatam it says, always engaging in the activities of devotional service, devotees feel ever increasingly fresh and new in all their activities. The all-knower, the super soul within the heart of the devotee, makes everything increasingly fresh. In the initial stages, when we come to this level of even vijnana Maya. This idea that, okay, there's something beyond the material happiness, the spiritual happiness, there's something beyond this world. That in the initial stages, we find it a bit cumbersome, right? I mean, I'm not going to look at anybody or speak up for anybody, but I'll put my hand up and say, when my hand goes inside the bead bag, the first thing I'm thinking is, when will it come out again? When I'm putting my face inside the books, the first thing I'm thinking is, when is the clock going to strike the time for me to finish? Most of us will probably feel that way. But that's okay. Because what we have to realize is that we need utsaham, nisjad, and dharya. Because eventually the time will come where just doing these services will give us ever new freshness and happiness. In the material world, if you want to try and get some happiness, you have to do one thing, and then once you've attained that one thing, you have to go find somewhere else. So find that happiness somewhere else. And then a third place, and fourth place. Which is why you see the world today is always about moving quickly. One thing, another thing, another thing, another thing, another thing, and another thing. Because whatever they have is not enough for them. But in spiritual life, the process is so nice and sublime that you just keep doing the same thing. You don't have to think about something else. You just have to be disciplined and keep doing the same thing. And a time will come where just that thing will give you so much happiness. You're chanting the same mantra every single day, but the time will come where that mantra is building and giving you so much happiness. You're reading the same books, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chant and Be Happy, Chaitanya Charitamrita. You're reading the same books again and again and again. Eventually the time will come where you're like, this book? How? I thought I read this book before. But every day you're getting something different, something new, something enlivening out of it. And ultimately, when we become advanced in our internal love, in our surrender and absorption, then everything we do for Krishna will become a source of inspiration for us in our spiritual life. Is it a 5 minutes, right? Is there questions before then? Okay, fine. I won't go into a side detour, but maybe upstairs. But yeah, this idea. But Queen Kunti says, Janmeshwarya Shuta Shibhe Edamana Madhapuman Nevaratyati Abhidhatam Ve Tvamakinchana Gocharam. This is in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1. Queen Kunti says, my Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feelings. She says that we can only achieve spiritual happiness, Anandamaya, if we are materially exhausted. So does that mean that on Sunday, because I'm not at work, I can't get happiness, but tomorrow, Monday, work day, I have a long day at work, come back in the evening, and then I numb the state? No. Material exhaustion means that we're no longer looking, we're no longer even thinking that the material world can give us happiness. It's a state where we're thinking that, this material world is nice, but it's empty. It's empty unless it's got Krishna. And so we need to come to that realization that all of our endeavors in the world, all of our plans that we have, and all the desires that we strive to achieve, they're not going to give us happiness. If we want to unlock the happiness from within, we have to lock away the idea that the material world will give us any happiness. I repeat, if we want to unlock the happiness that's within us, we have to lock away this idea that the material world can give us happiness. But unfortunately, most of us bring that idea into spiritual life. We think that, okay, this service isn't giving me so much happiness. That service though, that will give me happiness. We bring it into spiritual life. But again, that's okay. It takes time. We have to have patience. But at some point, we'll come to the realization, at some point we have to come to the realization that it's just about being a servant. Right? We have to come to the stage where we just have to see that our consciousness just needs to be absorbed in Krishna. Instead of thinking about how can I be happy in my service, it's about how can I do the best service. Give myself in the best possible way for Krishna. And this applies to all areas of life, actually. Because the idea is that we want to bring Krishna into every aspect of our life. Imagine if two people are looking to get married. And their focus is, how can I be happy in the marriage? What will I get out of the marriage? Frustration, disappointment, disaster. Inevitable, right? But if on the other hand, they're thinking, how can I serve my partner? How can we come together to serve Krishna? How can we unlock each other's potential in serving Krishna? Then so much possibility is there. And we have to bring that mindset into all areas of our life. Whether it's family, whether it's career, whether it's wife, husband, children, devotees that we serve with, coming to the temple, being out on the street, we have to bring that mentality. How can I be of the best possible service for Krishna? That could be through the devotees, that could be through the colleagues. But that idea, that mood of service is important. So if we're mining jewels for happiness, right, or mining jewels of happiness rather, then that humble mood of servitude, coupled with a prayer to be absorbed, are both very, very important. And ultimately, if we have absorption in Krishna, and approach life with a desire to serve Krishna and his devotees, then we can unlock the happiness and come to the Anandamaya levels. And the most easiest way we all know, Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam. Kalo nasteva, 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 gatiranyatha. Chanting, glorifying Krishna, whether it's on the beads, whether it's in kirtan, whether it's during arti, whether it's reading the books, but always finding a way to connect everything we're doing to glorify Krishna. That's the only way. That's the best possible way. Chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. As I said, there's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way. So if you want to get to the Anandamaya state, that state of pure internal happiness, if you want to unlock the treasure box and dive deep as we can into the ocean of transcendental bliss, then we have to connect everything to Krishna. Saranya, Hare Krishna. Any questions, comments?
Prabhu,
It's okay.
Hare Krishna. Okay. So what is this? I am there. I mean, is a again position or last position or 1, 2, 3? How I do know that? And another things. That's the and who is this? I will go close and how to do, and I am how I realize that I am in this state. And another thing, since family matter, it's a family, all family not same opinion, it's divided. So what is that suggestion? That's
Could you clarify the first part of the question?
I said first class, which stage? It's a 5 stage.
Hmm.
5 stage. So which stage me? I how can I realize me myself? And how I do that one by one, process one by one.
So is the question on how do we go through the
Go
sheets?
through this and how I realize myself, which position I am, and what that's final.
I'll answer in a cheeky way. I mean, those who know me know I like to be cheeky. We have to use the third sheet to identify which sheet we're in. we have to introspect. So I gave the 5 sheets, right? Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manamaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. I gave the 5 sheets. I gave a brief explanation of each of them. So we have to then use our intelligence to think, okay, where do I best fit? Now it's not that we're categorically in one or the other. There'll be certain things where we're in level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. Hopefully we're in level 5 at least something, right? I'd like to think I am, but reality is I'm probably being optimistic. So we have to introspect to understand, okay, where do we fit? And in terms of growing through the sheets, it really comes from realizing that there are 5 sheets. The thing is, we often think that any ladder means that we have to climb the ladder one step at a time. But if we have a lift, why would we climb 20 floors of steps? It just makes sense to take the lift. If we know the lift exists, then if we want to go quickly, if we recognize that we might not have time, then just take the lift. And what's that lift? That lift is find the best possible way for you to come to Anandamaya. We don't need to go, okay, I'm Annamaya right now, therefore I need to go to Pranamaya first, and then Jnanamaya. We go straight, okay, Anandamaya is there, let me endeavor for Anandamaya. And what does that mean? Basically means what we spoke about, this idea of practicing spiritual life with enthusiasm, with confidence in Krishna, and with patience. So then the second question regarding family, not everybody's of the same opinion. And I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming the question there is, how do we navigate those relationships? Is there an additional part to that, or is it just how to navigate?
Yeah, how to navigate it. That's all of the family. Somebody is different, somebody is different.
So there's multiple ways. Given I spoke about the sheets, so tailor it to the sheets. But one thing that we can do is, just as you were asking about how can we recognize where we are, what we can do is recognize where they are and how to help them come to the next stage. We'll be aiming for Anandamaya. We'll be aiming for the topmost because we recognize there's a topmost. Not everybody is aiming for that. So we can't force them to go aim for the topmost thing. But what we can help them do is go, okay, right now, we do this with babies actually. Right now they're just focused on food, but we want to give them toys, we want to help them develop their consciousness beyond just the food, beyond just safety. So we introduce other things to them so that they can raise their consciousness. And in the same way, that's what we want to do with family, with friends, with colleagues. Introduce them to the next level for them. Some we might find are ready for Anandamaya. There we can go, full steam ahead. But not everybody's there.
No, this family is very difficult to introduce first. First things, they don't understand the first things. That's the main problem. Already separatists, all difference, lot of difference. So how can bring them this what is called Krishna consciousness, come here, everything is there, there is a happiness, there is peaceful, everything. Very, very difficult. How to introduce first things, task, connection. From the first things is connect them within the Krishna consciousness.
So come back to the same thing. Oftentimes we think that with family we want to make everybody Krishna conscious. That isn't always possible. With family especially, it's very, very difficult. But what we want to do is elevate their consciousness. We often talk about how the mode of goodness is a platform. The mode of pure goodness is the train to Krishna. And then, I don't know if this is in the scriptures, but I like to add that devotional service is the ticket to board that train. We want everybody to board the train. But if we want them to board the train, we need to find a way to get them the boarding ticket of devotional service. We need to find a way to engage them in devotional service. For me, my favorite sort of devotional service is something that applies intellect. Reading, speaking. If I look at my family, they're not into intellectual sort of exercises. So if I'm trying to go, you should read this with me, that's not going to work.
No.
But if we engage them in some way, that'll help them. But again, it's not necessary that they become devotees. We just need to find a way to help them elevate, to at least come to the platform of goodness. Even if it's not directly Krishna conscious, our role is to help them raise their consciousness so that they can become Krishna conscious. Our role is not to directly make them Krishna conscious. If we can, that's nice. But if we're struggling with it, then find the next best thing. And unfortunately, sometimes we also have to realize that for some people, if we can't help them along the way, we just have to get out of their way. So sometimes we might not be the person that will help them in the Krishna conscious journey. Sometimes we have to recognize and accept that, and then just get out of the way. And that doesn't mean that we just leave everybody, by the way. What I'm saying there is that we don't try and push them along the path. Somebody else might. So I hope that helps.
No, thank you very much.
Really, I want to say something.
Hare Krishna. See, we are taking the food, prasadam, that's an means food. If we eat food or prasadam, thinking that this is prasadam, that our first portion is completed. Second is man. Our mind is never in our favor. It always takes us to another place. So second is, if we control the mind by eating good prasadam, then mind will be controlled. And if mind is controlled, we should think that whatever breathing we are having, pranamaya, that pranamaya is only possible if we take prasadam and we think that our mind is in our control. Then pran is only for the Krishna consciousness. And next is Vijnanam. Vijnana means what we should, Dhyan and Vijnana, knowledge and science. We should think that our body is only for Krishna conscious, our pran is only for Krishna conscious. This food, prasadam we are eating, this is only for Krishna consciousness. Then we can go to the Anandamaya position. So I may say this one. Hare Krishna.
And when you do those, you attain Anandamaya.
Anandamaya.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, sorry, what's your name, Prabhu?
My name is Janeshwar Das.
Dhyaneshwar.
Janeshwar.
Janeshwar. Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. So nice. Yes, a practical way to apply all four of the sheets in Krishna service. Jay.
So probably you said that we should look away the idea that material life can make us happy. So let's assume we look that away, but sometimes it feels like it's coming back again on us. So how does it get released?
Sometimes we lock it away, but we realize that we still left some parts dangling outside. That's where we apply patience. If we're not at the stage of pure, unalloyed bliss in transcendental life, naturally it will come. Because that's what we're used to. But it takes time for it to go away completely. And this other thing is that even in the Bhagavad Gita, you see that Krishna recognizes that sages or saints who are very much focused along their path, even they sometimes slip. Why? Not because they're intentionally slipping, because by accident, because of their past deeds, it happens. And so we just have to recognize, am I slipping because I'm actually slipping? Or am I slipping because, actually, you know what? That little thing, that taste I had, is quite attractive. Krishna does say, it's okay to slip sometimes. So I'll go that side and just pretend to slip. So we have to recognize that, are we intentionally going for it? Or is it happening because it's a slip? And if it's a slip, a bit of guilt is good. Guilt that inspires us to do better is good guilt. But guilt that blocks us from growth is not good guilt. So we can have a bit of guilt and understand, okay, I want to do better. I don't want to make the same mistake again and again. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think there were a couple more, I don't know if you have time.
Maybe upstairs.
Okay. So just conscious of time because we do have Prashadam in this room itself. And so, yes, I shall end there and we can have Q&A upstairs. I think it's at 6:45? Sorry, 5.
As soon as you've taken prasadam.
Oh. Okay. Pressure's on. So yes, thank you everybody. And Hare Krishna.
His Grace Bhaja Govindam Prabhu ki.
Jai. Shri ki. Jai.
Thank you very much, Bhaja Govinda Prabhu, for giving your talk. Much appreciated. Thank you for coming. So yes, like Bhaja Govinda Prabhu said, he will be giving a questions and answers session after we serve the feast. So, if you have any more questions, if you have anything that you want to speak to him about, any questions you want to ask, both myself and Bhaja Govinda Prabhu will be up these stairs in the VIP room. If you go up 2 more flights, then you see the VIP room there. We'll both be there as soon as we finish prasadam. You can ask any question you like about Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga, spiritual life, about ISKCON, the Hare Krishna movement, what we do in this temple, anything you like, and we'll try and answer it for you. So apart from that, I have a few